breath. There we go. All right, so we call to order now the meeting of Signal Mountain Town Council, Monday, June 10, here at Town Hall. We're going to start with a pledge, and anyone here for invocation? We'll have a pledge will be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Council member Speak had a family emergency tonight, and so she's unable to be here and sends her apologies. Approval of minutes, no, roll call is next, actually.
Vice Mayor Amy Speak, who is absent. Councilmember Bill Lutz.
Here.
Councilmember Susanna Murdoch.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Spalding.
Here.
Mayor Dan Lang.
Here. And next is approval of minutes, but we have none because the staff has been busy working on budgets this time. So we move right into citizens' opportunity to address council. This is not the hearing, but it's a fine time to still go ahead and address the council. Do we have any idea about how many folks want to speak tonight? All right, so whoever's first. State your name and address and do what Mrs. Haygood did and pull the mic down towards your face.
Ann Haygood, 506 James Boulevard. I'd like to thank council and staff for their hard work on the budget this year. They knew in advance it would be a tight year, and they have been diligent in seeking the best solution. Town Manager Veal presented a proposed budget and a separate list of items that would be helpful to staff in performing their work. The proposed budget was already very lean, so there has not been much there that could be cut without a negative effect on town services. The suggestion of selling our water system is not a responsible solution, and I thank council for recently voting to retain our system. As an aside, a $100,000 annuity that was referred to at a recent meeting, that number was presented initially in contract negotiations for our water system, but was quickly corrected to not $100,000, but $25,000. It represents the property tax on real estate owned by our water system. That $25,000 is already paid into the town budget by our town water system, so there would be no net benefit if it were paid by a different owner. Selling the water system would not fix the fact that we're spending more than we bring in. When money from that sale would be gone, we'd be right back in a hole, and it would be even harder to dig our way out than it is now. And we would no longer own one of our most valuable assets, and we would have no control over rates or improvements. It would amount to a loan that does not solve any problem on the backs of our water system ratepayers, with the ratepayers paying more from now until eternity. The viable solutions to our budget crunch are to raise taxes or to implement some other means of raising operating revenue. One of the main reasons we have this shortfall is the elimination of the Hall income tax. This tax on investment income applied primarily to residents in very comfortable financial positions. Those residents are now benefiting from the elimination of this tax, but shifting that burden in the form of a monthly sanitation fee to those in our community who are less well off does not fit the values of this town of Signal Mountain that I love. There are some for whom the sanitation fee that was proposed is highly regressive, laying a heavier burden on those with a lower income. There are some for whom $18 a month is truly budget breaking. For others, it's just another bowl of cheese dip. So the idea of splitting the revenue source between a tax increase and a sanitation fee may sound good at first blush. On closer inspection, it appears to be the worst of both worlds. It is regressive up to about the mid-range of house values in the town, a home value of around $300,000, and would add an administrative burden that seems open to several challenges, including billing logistics, several compliance issues, system load, and possible environmental impact. And there would still be a tax increase as well. The only solution that makes sense here, unfortunately, is a property tax increase. No one likes the idea, but if we want services, we have to pay for them.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dunman Road, and I don't say Cherokee. Dan, did you ask Harry about, you voted to keep the water system, haven't we done that? Or has that been done?
The vote wasn't technically, I mean, the result of the vote was a vote to keep, but I don't want to mislead this. There's not like there's a resolution that says that, but we voted to instruct staff to notify the bidders that we were no longer pursuing selling our water systems. Is that
That's
pretty
in
close to the way the
essence.
resolution is worded? Do you recall?
I think you did resolve, I mean, the motion did include to keep.
Yeah, that's right. It said to keep the water system. Yeah.
Okay, you were supposed to ask Harry if you can keep bringing it up under this council. Did you ask him that?
I didn't ask Harry that specifically, but that's something that, because this isn't really a hearing, that's something we can bring up if it comes up tonight.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Doug. Anyone else? All right, so we close the citizens' comment portion. I don't know why I hit that piece of wood. It just felt very satisfying. All right, next we have a request for variance. So this is for Alexian Village, and we have someone here from Alexian as well tonight.
I don't see Mr. Tompkins. Is there anyone else on this matter?
We have Ed Garby here who can help explain some stuff. So if you just want to come up and say your name and address, if we need this. His council had a chance to take a look at this. The DRC met. I'll pass this over to Boyd because Boyd has spoken with him about where we are on this.
This is a request for,
Is your mic on, Boyd?
thank you, for a variance for sign size and dimension. The DRC reviewed the design and features and all and have approved the signs up to 25 square feet. Anything above that they cannot approve and would have to come to the council for a variance. And in your packet you had an outline of the variances being requested at this time. It was my understanding that Mr. Tompkins and perhaps someone from the sign company would be here, but with all the other activity, it may be having difficulty. So I don't know if you want to begin with this or push it and see if they come after Ed
Well, that's not a bad
fills
idea.
us in.
Council have any problem if we move this down after ordinances?
It's fine with
No.
me.
It's okay? All right, so Ed, do you mind hanging out for a bit?
Yeah, so Ed Garby, I am the chair of the DRC. I'm at 502 Signal Mountain Boulevard. So it's basically what Boyd said. We approved the design, locations of the sign pending. I think one of them was actually shown on the Boaz property, and he was strongly recommended that they revise their site plan to show it on Alexian or the right-of-way. But we approved everything except the size. The ordinance just does not allow a sign the size of what they want to put in. So that's why we refer it to you.
Let's go ahead, let's complete this task.
Okay.
I think they've had time to get here. The problem has been noted that the sign is over the 25 square feet. It also would block, one of them would block the sign for Signal Point. If they go up to the size they're going to, it actually blocked the sign.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, Boyd drove over and took a look at it today. My thought with that is we can't do that.
And what kind of sign is the one, I don't remember, I know I've seen it every time I come over there, but I don't remember whether it's a metal sign on a post or is it a carved wooden sign? What type of sign is that?
It's metal on metal posts.
Okay.
It's you want to take a look at this? The bottom of the signal point sign is 5'1", the top is 6'9", and 6'9" is what they're asking for as their height. So it would completely block it.
So my thought is, we should probably make them keep it to the size it needs to be. This one.
Will that address the blockage by keeping it?
You could allow it to be some larger than the 25 max that's in the code, but anything over 5 feet would serve to block the other side. So
According to
if they wanted it to remain square,
yeah.
5 feet by 5 feet, they've got the 25. If they want to make it a little larger and more rectangular, then they could surpass the 25. But again, anything over 5 feet is going to interfere with that other sign for the national park.
Well, I believe the ordinance states that the structure for the sign cannot be over 6 feet, but the sign is, if I have to go look it up again, I just read it a few minutes ago, the sign shouldn't be more than 4 feet high. But then it talks about, we're talking about a monument type sign, can't be over 6 feet. So, I mean, what Boyd is saying, if it fits underneath the Signal Mountain Point or Signal Point sign,
It needs to still fit under it. I mean, I think there's some leeway for it to be a little wider if they needed it to be, but then there's the whole aspect ratio of what it is they're trying to do. And it's a less, for those here, it's a less intrusive sign, the new one that they're going to. The lighting is better, it doesn't have the uplighting on it, and so it's better, but it can't block the Signal Point sign. What do you think we should do?
well, my first thought when he mentioned it was, can you move the Signal Point sign? But looking at the picture, this,
And it's federal.
I mean, I think the ideal solution would be to use their new design, but make it a rectangle in the size and shape of what they have there now. And it fits underneath the Signal Point sign, and still, they have to redo their logo to, I guess, to make it wider and shorter.
Right.
But, I mean, that's a recommendation you can go back to them with.
So could we word this that sends it back to them that way? I mean, I'm not sure that we should be redesigning signs for people. They should be going to you guys and asking.
Well, we have in the past made recommendations to designs, but we don't typically like to do that. I mean, I think what you could do is decline it. Well, now, there are 3 signs.
Right.
So this one.
This is the one with the
Right.
problem.
Maybe you could decline that one and give them a reason why, and they would come back to us with a new design for that particular sign.
So we're
Yeah,
approving
now-
3 signs?
Yeah.
With that said, it may come back and still be more than 25 square feet. But what you're looking for is something that fits under the Signal Point sign.
Right.
So if it comes back and it's still larger than 25 square feet, we are still going to deny it and send them back to you. So it's kind of, I mean, it's a long
Right.
process.
But it would solve the problem,
It
and
would,
they have a sign now, so it's not like we're
right.
stopping anything that they're trying to do. Is there, Carol, is this in the form of a resolution in here?
No, it wouldn't be a resolution.
So how would our vote be, I guess we need to ask Harry Cash how we can word this. Can we approve 2, which are variances, because they're also larger?
They're larger than 25 square feet, so, right, they're coming to you for approval of all 3. And you selected one that you
The other two are very close to the same size as the ones that exist now. The dimensions are different, but it's not a significant departure from what's there.
Right.
This one that we're talking about is considerably different than what exists.
Right, and I have some notes from you guys that this is a larger sign, that's why they're asking for the variance. But it's replacing a non-conforming sign as well. And this is a better sign that fits the neighborhood better and the lighting is better.
Well, they are, I don't know, I can't think of the term. Revamping is not the right term, but they're overdoing.
Rebranding,
Right, all of their logos. I mean,
all the
they're-
stuff within.
They're doing directive signs and things like that inside the campus. We felt like those did not impact the town because they weren't visible, because they're inside the development. So yes, they're redoing all their signage everywhere. And to meet the Ascension Living, I think nationwide.
So, Harry, am I okay making a motion to approve the two variances, but to deny the variance on, what's the address of this sign?
This one is noted as E16.
Is that,
E16 is the larger of the three.
Correct. E9 and E14, and those numbers relate to legends on a locating map.
One of them, and I don't remember which one's which, one of them is the entrance into the drive-through in front of the hotel, and then the other one is the entrance off of Ohio. And I think they have two over there now, they're only gonna leave one.
right,
Well, you could deny the variance as requested and then move to amend it to add or to approve the sign number E9 and E14. Is that what you want to do?
yes, do those need to be two separate motions, or can we do that in one?
No, you can do that in one motion.
All right, so I make a motion that we deny it as requested, and we amend it to approve.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I thought you meant would the motion to approve E9 and E14 need to be separate motions?
Okay.
You need to deny the variance request as proposed and have a vote on that.
Okay, so I move that we deny the variance request as proposed.
Second.
Any other discussion on this? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries 4-0. I'd like to amend the request to approve the variation on E9 and E14 and deny the variation on E16 and ask them to come back to the DRC
Okay.
with a new
Yeah,
design.
we can do that.
And specifically.
And I can explain to them at that time,
Right.
this is what happened,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
I think you just moved to amend to approve E9 and E14.
okay.
In that amendment, you don't have to address 16.
All right, so what he said, Carol.
Okay, so I just want to be clear, so I've got to amend the requirement, amend the request to approve the variation on E9 and E14.
Yes.
Correct.
And that's going to leave E16 out of the picture, so. Because, and we've already denied that, so. I make that motion. Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, and I'll direct this to Harry. Are we not setting a precedent by approving this variance for a sign greater than 25 square feet? And would we not then find it difficult to deny other folks who might want to exceed the 25 feet?
Well, you're certainly setting a precedent, but it's a fact-by-fact situation doesn't mean every variance requested has to be granted. It does lead to an argument that why did you approve this one and you're not going to approve a later one? So certainly it is a precedent, Doesn't mean every request is going to have to be approved.
Okay, thank you.
We have that same discussion with the DRC as well. Fortunately, the ordinance allows us to pass it on to you.
And
good.
you didn't come to us with a recommendation that we approve or deny the variance request.
No, we're not. We just told them that we cannot approve this based on the ordinance. You would have to seek a variance from the town council.
So I agree with you. I'll go all the way back to the reader board at the high school. Rather than having a variance there, I think we should have changed the ordinance that says if it is in a place where you can't see it on a school ground, so that we aren't doing variances all the time. But in this case, we have two non-conforming signs already. And so these are better non-conforming signs than what they already have, and they're less light intrusive. So I like that.
And I can go back to them after, or tomorrow or whatever, and just let them know, you may need to change your design on this one sign.
How concerned are you? I mean, you could sway me.
Concern.
You're concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I recognize they have non-conforming signs as it is, and for the most part, this group of signs would be no larger than their existing signs. But I do worry about the precedent issue. And do you then have folks making the argument that we are favoring Alexian or someone else over their request?
Is there any reason why the signs have to be the size that they presented to you?
I don't remember anything in particular other than that's what corporate, they hired a sign design team to, and that's what they came up with. I don't have anything else for that.
Is this part of the discussion?
Yes.
It's like the Domino's sign. They've had a lighted sign. It now falls out of favor, but yet we gave a variance for that. You could say it sets a precedent, but each one, like the attorney said, is handled on an individual basis. And I think that it would be appropriate to approve those two signs and then ask them for a change on the third. I think that's a good mediation.
Any other discussion? I think we should vote then. It's not that we're denying, if we deny it, it's not that we're denying them the ability to have signs or to change their signs.
Right.
It's just, I tend to agree with you on this, Bill. And yeah, they can come back. I mean, they could come back to us and say it's impossible for some reason in order to do this, and because of the shape of the signs, this is less obtrusive. But yeah, I'm ready to vote. Is everybody ready to vote?
So E9 and E14, those signs are identical. They're the same square feet. They're both 31.78 square feet.
How big?
31.78.
31, so yes, they're slightly over 25 square
Yeah.
feet.
And then the E16 is 43.87
That's
square
big.
feet. I mean, that's a big sign. And they're attractive signs. I mean, they're squares. I mean, I wonder how hard it would be to, so the old signs are they're almost 35 square feet. So the new signs would actually be a little bit smaller, but they're still exceeding the 25 square foot maximum. I mean, how hard would it be for them to just be in compliance with the ordinance?
Well, that's what we don't know. I mean, they're doing this system-wide, apparently. They're changing their signs, and so we don't know.
For
But
consistency's sake, well, I don't know,
Yeah.
because the other one, I guess,
sign
that's not
companies
for
can
us.
make all kinds of things.
yeah, they can.
It's not, yeah. All right, everybody ready to vote?
Could we restate the motion?
Well, we've already denied E16, and so we could restate the motion, or this could it could pass or fail.
I'd just like to hear what the
Oh,
motion is.
you have a
You didn't
motion.
mean rewrite the motion. Okay, yes, sorry.
to amend the request to approve the variation on E9 and E14.
Thank you.
Does that clarify? No more discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay?
No.
I think I am.
So it,
Okay, I'm sorry, I need to be clear. So I had one
one, yes.
in favor, are the other three all nay?
The all three were nays.
Thank you.
And just let them know.
So you're approving the?
No,
Okay, you're not approving any
all of
of
it
it?
failed.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And that way we can find out if they can get them to be the right size, which I think is what our job is. Thank you, Ed. All right, so we move on to resolutions now. The first is, let me get past this. I'll read the resolution. A resolution authorizing the town manager for the town of Signal Mountain, Tennessee, to enter into a contract with Waste Services of Tennessee LLC, that's Santec, in an annual amount of $230,008 and $68 for a 3-year term beginning on July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2022, as the lowest and best bid for the hauling and disposal of waste from the town transfer station. So Boyd, this is, how many, did we have other bidders besides Santec?
Yes, there were three. And this, there was one other that was relatively close, and then the other was about 21,000 above this. Santec is our current provider.
How much was the last contract?
I am getting that right now. No. We just have way too many tabs in this book.
I'll go ahead and put forward a motion while he's finding that, and we can have discussion once we get there. So we have a motion and a second, Carol?
Our current is, it's broken down, the landfill services is 85,000 and the hauling is 48. And in this contract, the hauling is 105 and disposal is 120. So it's gone up considerably. We anticipated and budgeted 230, 211, and it actually came in above that even.
Were there other bidders on this?
Yes. We had Republic, they bid 233.4, and Priority Waste, their bid was 251.216. And again, Santec is a low bidder by $3,000, a little more, and they are our current provider, and we're pleased with their service. We'd certainly rather not seen this kind of increase, but given the consistency of the bids, I think it's what we've left to deal with.
I'll make a motion to accept.
No, we have that. So any other discussion? Well,
I mean, everything's more expensive, it seems like.
everything's more expensive. That's a lot. That's a
jump.
It's a third more.
It's just the way of things these days, I
Yeah.
think.
All right.
But I think if they're doing a good job and we're pleased with their service and they're the least, it's the most economical, it makes the most sense. So I would be in favor of giving them the contract.
No other variations that you can come up with that,
You know, we've looked at other options on numerous occasions, actually. And even with this increase, I don't think anything is a more practical or cost-effective method to deliver the level of service that we do.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, it carries 4-0.
Mr. Landrum, just want to say thank you for the business, your staff, Mr. Bill. They work with us very closely, and I appreciate your business.
Thank you. If we had negotiated with you just now, could we have gotten another 20,000 knocked off of this?
You know, if you look back at the contract, I won't get into a lot of detail, there's no CPI or anything built into the contract.
If you don't, step to the mic if you don't mind, so we have you on record.
My name is Kenny Fuquay, and I'm an employee by Santec Waste Services. The way the contract was written, I mean, there's no CPI,
CPI.
where you just look at a consumer price index, where you would go up in increments. I think you would have seen you still would have had an increase, but it may have been lower if you'd looked at that.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Next resolution. A resolution for the Town of Signal Mountain Town Council authorizing additional funds in the amount of $16,671.16 for the contract with Raines Brothers, Inc. for renovations and repairs to the Mountain Arts Community Center. And I understand this has to do with the rock clause in that contract, if you want to tell us about that.
As we've stated previously, the contract for the work at the MAC did have a rock clause. Pretty much any of the major construction projects we have do because we live on a rock. So we knew part of this was coming. That was $11,000, and there was about another $5,000 that was associated with the drainage that was supposed to come and just come through a wall. Well, the rock literally came right to the back of the wall. There was just a giant boulder between point A and point B. So part of that wall had to come out and be rebuilt. So the two combined are 16,671, 16. And while we are asking for authorization to expand the contract for that amount, those funds aren't additional funds given the time of the year, and being that we were hoping that this project would end sooner and MAC would be up and running and doing more. The budget reflected that, so since that hasn't happened, there are funds within the operating budget for MAC that will not be expended, and we can use those to cover this. So that takes care of the funds. We just need an authorization to add this to the contract amount.
I move to approve.
Second?
Discussion? So just to clarify, this isn't coming out of the general fund. This is coming out of the max budget for 2018-19, which is in the general fund. I mean, but it's not coming as a capital.
It's not coming out of fund balance.
It's not coming out of fund balance.
It's not additional funds beyond what's already budgeted.
These CMFOs and their insistence on proper nomenclature drives me nuts. So
That's what you pay us for.
Okay. Just because this building has come up many times, just a thought, something for us to think about. In 2014, for insurance purposes, this building was valued, replacement value at $2.5 million. If we just did the increase in replacement cost from 2014 to now, knowing what things cost, we're surely at $3 million with the value on that building. The money that has been spent on this is around $600,000. And that is to put sprinklers in, and that's to fix water problems. If you get a chance to go over there and walk around now, you'll feel good. It looks really good. But remember that that money that has gone in also adds to the value of a town-owned asset, which is the old Signal Mountain Elementary building. So we have a building there that's now surely somewhere approaching $4 million in value if we had to replace it, I would think. So I'm guessing, maybe it's 3.72, I don't know. But the fact is that the money that has been spent on this goes into it as an asset. It makes the building worth more. So as this thing is wrapping up, it felt good the other day to walk around and take a look at the work that's been done and to see the sprinkler system that's going in and to see all the work that's being done by volunteers. The town got a check for $6,000 today from the preservation fund as the last payment because they chipped in to help pay for the sprinkler system in the back. So there's somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 in citizens just donating that has gone into this project, and it's an innumerable amount of value in citizens working at that building and making the changes. I was there before 8 o'clock this morning to let sheetrockers in, all being paid for by citizens that are redoing Val's art room right now. So
That's a great public-private partnership.
yeah, it's working out, and I'm really glad that you were able to find a way to not have this hit us in another way. I mean, for it to just come out. It did mean a hit into some of the things that Barb was wanting to do at the MAC. There's some stuff that she's not going to get to complete this year, but I think it's a sacrifice, and so thank you, Barb, for not screaming too loud when you got that news, too. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Brian Sitten Construction for culvert replacement located at Wintry Drive in the amount not to exceed $43,300, and authorizing the town manager to execute any necessary documents in connection with this award. And my understanding is that when Wintry was annexed, we annexed some things that didn't meet the Signal Mountain Road standards, and this is just a part of fixing one of those.
Well, yes, but it's not just a matter of it not meeting our standards, it is that it is failing and creating issues. So I think this has come up in several meetings relative to the expansion of that subdivision, and all these issues were brought up by a number of the residents, and it was on the radar and now has been evaluated and ready to move forward with the repairs.
I saw someone on social media asking exactly where this one is, where this culvert is in Wintry. Does anybody have that specifically?
I don't have the exact address, but it's on Wintry Drive in the dip before you get up to the last part of Wintry. But I don't know what that, I don't recall the exact address on that, but.
I can picture it on a map, but I don't really know how to
I mean, I can
explain it other
envision
than
it.
that.
Yeah. But it is one way in and one way out there, so we have to be, part of the contract is to be able to keep at least one lane open at all times.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you. Have we gotten a motion?
Not yet.
We will entertain
Make
one.
a motion to accept it. I noticed that their,
And I'll second.
yeah, I noticed that their bid was significantly lower than the other company.
Yeah, there was a significant spread on this one. And this contractor has done several of these culvert work jobs for us, so we're comfortable with the fact that he's that low. We don't see any issue with the quality of the work we can anticipate.
If for anyone not looking at the paperwork we're looking at, the other bid was 107.6, and this bid was 43.3, so that's nice. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, carries 4-0. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the mayor, let's see if this one's in this packet. Yeah. A resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a contract renewal with the Southeast Tennessee Development District for planning staffing services in an amount not to exceed $15,350 per year. So Set D is the organization that assists the Planning Commission. Signal Mountain had a contract prior to this with the Regional Planning Agency. And I don't know, are they the only players, RPA and Set D?
Practically speaking. And I don't know, frankly, if we actually had a contract with RPA or how that arrangement worked. Bill may be able to speak to that more. But that was going to change, and there was going to be significant cost associated with that, and we then engaged the development district.
So I'm on the Planning Commission, and Susanna's on the Planning Commission. So my experience with Set D is at meetings where they bring maps and they make recommendations for zoning. You're not required to go by their recommendations. That's my experience, and they've been responsive. Are there other ways that the town uses Set D services?
Yeah, they've assisted us in some fairly significant grant projects.
Like the
Marion
bike
Driver, and they're assisting, they will assist with that throughout that process. And the bike ped plan that was developed, they assisted with updating the land use plan. So there's a lot more than just reviewing subdivision or plats or rezonings and making recommendations on them. They provide a pretty broad range of services.
They also, to be on the Planning Commission, you're required to have planner training, and they also provide planner training that we went to last year, so that's among the services. Anything else? Just to kind of get it out there. When I came on the council, I had no idea what that was, and so I feel like others may not know why we spend this money. Anything you'd add, Bill? Because you've been...
I'm sorry?
Said anything you'd add to that? You've been around this for a while.
No, I think the consensus is that everyone's satisfied with them. And with respect to RPA, I seem to recall that they were really trying to move us out just to some other opportunity like Set D.
That's a nice way to say that.
Oh, we don't have a motion yet. I move to approve.
Second.
Bob, do you have any thoughts on this? Susanna?
Nope.
If you don't mind, I would point out for the record, this is an increase. The prior contracts have been for 12.5, so that looks fairly significant, but this is the first increase we've ever had, and I think we've been working with them since 2011.
How did we budget it?
It was budgeted at the current level.
Okay.
So we'll have to make an adjustment for that.
Okay.
But in the scheme of things, it's relatively minor. We can deal with it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries 4-0. So that's all in this section, though we do... Yeah, we have to have the public hearing before we go into the next section. So we are now convening a public hearing for zoning of short-term rentals. And that means if anyone is here, wants to talk about short-term rentals, come to the mic and we can talk about it. All right, seeing none, we close the public hearing portion and move to ordinances. So this one's a little complicated because we're reading three things. The first three all have to do with the short-term rentals. And the first of those is an ordinance, and this will be a second reading on the administrative hearing officer. I'll read it. An ordinance amending section 12801 of the Signal Mountain Town Code to give administrative hearing officer the power to hear violations of locally adopted zoning codes. So Boyd, if you want to give us just a quick
This is a change to our current code, and the result of fairly recent change to the TCA, which allows administrative hearing officers to hear zoning cases. The main reason for doing this is it will allow us, since short-term rentals will now be in zoning, that they could hear those cases. Municipal court can fine up to $50. Administrative hearing officer can levy fines up to $500. So it gives us a little more leverage in dealing with those situations should they come up in terms of violations of the code controlling the short-term rentals.
Do we hear a motion to approve on second reading?
So moved.
I'll second. Other discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Next, we have an ordinance to amend Title IX of the Signal Mountain Town Code by enacting Chapter 3 thereof to address the regulation of short-term vacation rentals within the town of Signal Mountain. Unless anyone, this has come through the Planning Commission, and what the Planning Commission could and couldn't do was highly regulated by Tennessee Code Annotated, that Boyd referred to. Anything else that we should add to this? I mean, these are pretty much boilerplate regulations that we're adopting.
These are the regulations that the state permits us to adopt in terms of short-term rental.
Anything else we need to add? No. I move to approve.
Second.
Other discussion? All right, hearing, you guys ready to vote?
Yes.
Anybody have anything? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none opposed. Carries 4-0. And this third one has to do with this also. This is an ordinance to amend Article 3 and Article 4 of the Signal Mountain zoning ordinance to address the regulation of short-term vacation rentals within the town of Signal Mountain. Describe to us why it seems like we're doing now what we just did a minute ago.
This incorporates, by reference, the regulations that we just adopted. So in various places within the zoning, it will now say that these are allowed, provided that all provisions of the chapters we just adopted are complied with, and it outlines where they can and can't be. So this basically, again, incorporates the code into the zoning in a manner that allows us another mechanism for enforcement.
I move to approve.
Well done.
Second.
Anyone who is watching this or in the audience that has a short-term rental, you can see all of this if you go to, is our municipal code on our website or just on the MTAS website?
It's on the Signal Mountain website.
Yes.
But it'll be a while before that gets updated?
Yes.
So
That'll be the issue.
Yeah.
We can post these
let's do that.
separately.
Yeah.
Is it my understanding that recently that Walden disallowed any type of short-term rental? Is that?
I don't know.
I thought I saw something in regards to that. Whereas we would be allowing it under these directions. Yeah.
Correct.
Anybody else have any discussion? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Next, we have an ordinance to amend Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10-1023I of the Town of Signal Mountain Municipal Code in reference to keeping chickens and other fowl in town. So, Bob, you were the one who recommended this.
Again, it's, we approved it on the first reading. Basically, you're still required to get a permit. We've had 10 years of no problems associated with this. The nominal amount that is collected plus the, it's more of a privacy issue once these have been deemed appropriate, just like having a dog or a cat in your yard. There's not ongoing restrictions. If there's a problem, there'd still be a building inspector would still come out and check. and if there's any kind of complaint, it would still be handled like any other kind of complaint. So if it proves after a period of time to be a problem, they can always reverse it.
And we haven't had any problems, so. All right, I'll move to approve.
Second.
Other discussion? Should we all do the chicken dance together? Or-
Apparently so.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? None opposed, carries 4-0. And last in ordinances, we have an ordinance to amend ordinance numbers 2018-08 and 2019-01 entitled the Fiscal Year 2018-19 Budget Ordinance as to provide for certain additional revenues and expenditures in this budget year. And this is something that happens periodically throughout the year to make adjustments. So Boyd, you want to talk to us? Can you give us a summary? All of this is in the paperwork, but any highlights that you want to hit in here?
A good portion of this relates to projects like MAC and the LPR grant. When you have a grant project, especially, and you aren't certain when portions of that project may be undertaken, so we have to budget for that. But if it comes to be apparent that that's not going to happen, then we need to make that adjustment so that it can be carried over into the next year. Other than that, I can go into as much detail as you would like, but it's all pretty straightforward. One of the things I would point out, because it's kind of new in more than one way, is we have a $17,500 100% grant to purchase an ATV for rescue operations. So we got that grant and budgeted it, so that needed to change. But now it's apparent that that's not going to happen, so we're going to change that again and push that to next year. So, and that's in here.
So
Correct?
it's going to occur next year, is that it? Is it another grant, or is it?
Excuse me, I stand corrected. Carol gave me the look. It's in here.
Oh, somebody else gets
It's
those.
in here to be, oh yeah, she's good at that. It's in here to establish those funds for that grant.
Okay.
So, and I apologize.
And these
I looked at this wrong.
the larger transfers, the 1.5, 1.4, and 1 million transfers, were those for, it said decreased expenditures in the amount of 1.4, and then there was increased revenue of 1 million, and then there was increased expenditures 1.5 for operating transfers out of the department. Those larger funds, are they just, they're shifts from one fund to the other?
Right. If something's budgeted in facilities maintenance for a major project, then it's shifting over to capital projects fund. We did that on a couple of things that we discussed in prior meetings. For instance, the LPRF grant. It's budgeted now in general fund. It's being moved to capital projects fund, so those funds will be there when that project starts, as opposed to having to re-budget in general fund and then transfer them later. So it's just we're gonna go ahead and move those to the capital projects fund.
Thank you.
I move to approve.
Second.
Other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So it carries 4-0. All right, now we move on to the discussion portion of our agenda today. And the discussion item is fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. So kicking this thing off, where we ended it last time was with a poorly worded statement by me, in that I wanted us to pull something forward so we had an opportunity to vote on a budget tonight, and we hadn't really discussed many options discussed many options. It wasn't my intent that the only option that was on the table be the one that we adopt, but it was one to move forward. And Carol, in listening to the notes, she interpreted it the way I said it. So it's on here as an item that I could make a motion right now that, we move forward with. But I would like to do the opposite of that. I would like to table that recommendation for that budget that we discussed. So I move that we table that recommendation and come up with something that makes more sense for us.
Second.
Discussion, questions? Did what I just said make sense? If, for the benefit of the audience, that budget had, this gets complicated quickly, so I'll try to keep it simple, but the original budget that staff put together proposed the idea, didn't recommend that we do it, but it proposed the idea of taking our sanitation services and charging a sanitation fee in lieu of property tax for that amount. And that came out to about $750,000, or is that $700,000. And that would have been about an $18 fee per month to everyone. The downside of a sanitation fee like that, and this kind of goes back to what Mrs. Haygood said, when the hall tax ended, the hall tax was on dividends. And so it tended to be people of greater means that paid those taxes. When the hall tax ended, it affected towns like ours and Walden and Lookout Mountain, smaller towns that don't have the amount, the commercial, even the potential for a lot of commercial revenue, much more heavily than it did cities, that had lots of other ways that they could absorb that. I can't see myself voting for something that takes a tax that was mostly on those of greater means, and then coming all the way down to this with a regressive tax called a sanitation fee, because it's still a tax, and putting on those of the least means. The median home value here is about
$294,500.
about $294,000. That would mean that all of those, and the break-even point, by the way, on property tax for that same amount, that $700,000, and sanitation fee, is somewhere around 400. No, do you remember? Is it 340? It's around
340.
Yeah, it's around 340,000. So that means all of those with homes at $340,000 or less would be paying more than if it was just a property tax, and in some cases significantly more, in the neighborhood of $300-400 more if your house was around a $150,000 home. And so then it was proposed at the last meeting that maybe that.
Dan,
What? Was my number wrong? So what was it? There's a lot of numbers here.
Yeah.
So I don't mind this.
You said $150,000 home.
Correct.
Okay. If we did a $9 sanitation.
Well, I'm going 18.
Oh, you're talking about the original?
Yes.
I apologize.
Yeah. And that's what I was getting to now.
Okay.
So it was proposed at the last meeting that maybe you cut that $18 sanitation fee in half and so make it be a $9 sanitation fee, which I think makes almost not much sense. Then state what that number is. That's where you were going.
Right. The combination sanitation fee and tax, a $150,000 home would pay $144.75 additional. If it was a straight tax, for the the proposed budget would be $90.97. So that's a lower budget and a higher cost.
Right. And so it's somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000. It's probably around $320,000 for the $9 fee to hit the break-even point on that. It's about where that is. So we have motion on the table that's been seconded to table the proposed budget as presented last time. Other discussion. That's what I have to say about that.
That is the blended,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, got it.
Any other discussion?
Well, I just, looking at this table that y'all prepared for us, and looking at the equivalent tax rate for somebody who has a property worth $150,000, their equivalent tax rate would be 1.9525. And on an $800,000 property, the equivalent tax rate would be 1.7185. So that defines regressive for me. And isn't equitable enough.
But it's interesting to see it laid out
Mhm.
as
It
as you
is.
presented it.
I mean, I don't think it was a waste of time, because it really helps to look at these different scenarios.
My initial motion was to get us to where we're looking at it, but I said it in such a way that here we are and we could approve it. Other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of tabling the proposed budget as presented tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed to tabling it? So it's tabled, 4-0. So now we move on in the discussion. I would like to make a motion. Well, we're in a discussion, so let's open it up. I've talked enough. Oh, do we have something from Amy that we should read?
We do, but I'll ask
Mr.
our
Mayor.
counsel.
I don't like being the one to say this, but I don't think that a council person who is not present can be heard. I know this is an unfortunate situation, and I know Amy sure wanted to be here and wanted to be heard, but I think it is, there's not any provision for allowing a council member to be heard by electronic means at a town council meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I think we should listen to our attorney. All right, so other ideas. I have some, but I don't want to dominate this. So do you want me to go ahead and present ideas, or do you guys have some others
Go
you
ahead
want
and
to toss
present.
out? Well, Bill, maybe.
Well, I think that the proposed budget, without the additional paving, number-wise, seems to make the most sense. And that would be the budget as presented to the council.
Okay. Anybody else have comments? Can you turn that slide on? I looked at a bunch of this, and so we can take a look at these. So if you don't mind, Sam, once that thing wakes up. And there are a lot of numbers here, and if at any point I say something wrong, I want you to interrupt me, because we're just drowning in numbers at this point. If you see it, and same thing, Carol, don't feel, not that you would feel any compunction in doing that. All right, can you get that brighter? It's brightening up. So as this comes into view, I want to get clear what we're dealing with here. The hall tax, 2018-19, that's the year we're in right now, $250,000 is budgeted. In 2019-2020, that goes down to $100,000, and in 2020-21, we get no more from the hall tax. The SAFER grant, which is how we initially hired 9 firefighters, in this year we get $336,872 in 2019-20. You see the number go to $247,39, 2021, $78,603, and then we're down to zero on that in 2021-22. If you don't mind zooming in now to that middle box, which is the proposed budget. If you can zoom in on that a little bit so we can focus on that one. And so this is what Bill just mentioned. That middle box is what we're talking about now. Now scroll, what's that?
It's going to be hard to see the
I know, but we can talk about that. So the first line we're seeing is the $100,000 property value. The next is
150.
150, sorry, thank you. The next is 200, 250, 300, 350, and we can slide back and forth and look at that. But scroll all the way to the bottom of this. And this, I think, is an interesting number. If we vote for this, next year, we're $268,439 short on our budget, assuming we have the exact same size budget we have this year. And that scares me just a little bit, that we aren't planning for next year properly. And that shortfall is based entirely on that first box we looked at that shows the grants, the funding that's not going to come in anymore. Okay? If we can go, any questions about that? I'm going to move across this spreadsheet. So let's go back up to the top and move the next blue box to the right. If we included, and this is this is the original thing that we talked about. If we do the proposed budget plus $338,000 in paving, and by the way, both of these last two things we talked about include the full 5% in raises for employees. So that's correcting that. Then you can see the difference in the net change from those two. It's 1.8091 property tax. If we don't do the paving, 1.9241. Now that's a little bit different from what the initial story was, where all the buzz was with the 22%. This is a little less than that because it doesn't include a couple of extras that were also in the supplemental budget. And one of those is a raise for the town manager. This does not include a raise for the town manager. That removes him from the 5%, just so you know. It includes nothing else from the supplemental budget other than paving, which we are behind on because of the James Boulevard project. Council voted a year ago not to do any paving, and we've gotten behind, and we had a really wet year, and it shows. You know, we have some work that needs to be done around the town. So if you'll scroll to the bottom of that, that works for us for this year because, I mean, it's planned to come out to zero. But that puts us in 2021 where we'd actually have an excess, assuming the same budget again. And that's because there's a little bit of grant money still coming in, and some of it's left. So looking at that, I thought, well, I mean, this is a tight budget. Maybe we can use that number to lower the potential overall tax increase just a little bit. And so if you'll scroll to next and go to the top, this is what I would like to move that we do. That we do $268,439 worth of paving. That basically drops that excess from the $338,000. So it helps us catch up some, but not completely. And then if you'll look at the end of next year, this puts us in a situation where 2021, assuming the same budget, we're able to meet it without having an excess. Does that make sense? That puts us in a place where we can hit it for 2 years. It includes the raise. The town manager is still not in the raise. And I would like to move that we adopt this budget.
Where's the debt servicing on this as far as,
Well, the debt service stays the same on all these. I mean, it's about 100.
what is that?
It's about 150,000 for the fire hall. Well, we have more debt service than that.
We have more
but
debt service. Huh.
What's overall debt service? Why do you ask that?
I'm just looking how that figures
Around
into
380.
what we have to carry
Is your
forward.
mic on, just to be sure? Yeah, you're good.
Total is 393,255.
And how far are we behind on our paving?
1 year, we didn't pave this year and took those funds and put it to the overage on James Boulevard.
So you're saying with this recommendation, you don't see any increase in having to raise taxes next year? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
that's right.
I think this looks responsible. I'm happy to see a compromise. I mean, I feel like this is, I've agonized over this and had so many conversations with people, and I think it's so important for us to compensate our employees commensurate with what other municipalities pay to the best of our ability. And I think, I don't think the rain patterns necessarily are going to be changing any great
It's hard to know.
going to change. So I don't know. I mean, I think this looks like a fair compromise.
And keep in mind, if we do pass this tonight, this is first reading, and we have a public hearing next time, so and a public hearing is more than just citizen comments. It's where we talk about everything. So this would get us to that step.
And I also think it's really important to forecast.
Yeah, and I recognize, I haven't gotten a second yet. I would need to propose this. Yeah, go.
I don't believe there's actually a budget
That's what I was about to say.
here being presented by staff at this point for you to vote on.
And that's,
Am I correct or incorrect?
I was going to ask that we amend.
We have a budget document prepared that reflects the proposed budget plus the $338,000 in paving. So if council, I believe on first reading, if you consider that, you could move to amend that, and then for second reading, we could have the document.
I'm sorry, can I question again? Is it actually included in the packet that they read to you?
It has not been yet.
What does this represent as far as a tax increase?
1.904.
No. Is that imbalance of, what was the original one
No,
for the
slide
22?
all the way to the left. It was 1.565. So
And that represented a 22% tax increase?
well, prior, this will be a little less than that. It's probably a little less than 20.
How much less?
I haven't done the math yet.
Let's do the math.
Who has a calculator?
I didn't catch it.
He wants to know the difference between 1.565,
And
1.905, and then the percentage that works out to.
21.5%.
It's 21.5? 21.5. So it's a little bit less.
21.5%, rounding up to 22%.
Okay. So it's a little less. It's a little less than it was. It's not as much as it was. It's important to look at what that means in terms of real dollars. So if you'll go back over to the right a little bit and make the whole spreadsheet a little bit smaller.
You want to see the entire spreadsheet?
Yeah, if you don't mind. There you go. Make that as big as you can so that we can see it. And I apologize, I should have brought that $150,000 column over to the right as well. So for somebody at our median value home, which is $294,000, we'll use 3, that's a $250 change, which divided by monthly, how much would that be? About, how much would that be monthly if somebody wants to do that for the median?
Like $20, 20.
It's a $22 a month fee that keeps our employees, and we can go into that if we want to talk about it, why I think we need to do the raise, and I would ask Boyd if he wants to do that, but let's don't do that just yet. But it also gets our streets back in shape. Our citizens expect a certain level of services in this town. It gets the citizens, it just keeps the ship afloat. And I'd rather not pay another $20 a month in taxes as well. But we're absolutely not alone in this. Everyone around us is dealing with the same thing. Walden's going to have some problems they have to deal with. I mean, it's the reality of the thing. As you guys saw tonight, for instance, the Santec contract had been about 130 and it came in at 240 or something like that. I'm not missing it by much. What's that?
2/3.
230, yeah. I mean, it's just the reality of where we are. So this is not an aggressive budget. I think it's also important to note that this budget, if you look at the overall budget circle, is actually a smaller budget than we had last year. This isn't a larger budget, it's a smaller budget than we had last year. And for us to meet that next year is going to be tough. I mean, it's not an easy thing. It means we'll have to have another non-expansive year in most things. What we don't know, I guess, because this changes a few numbers, Carol, is where this puts us on the unassigned general fund balance percentage. You can't just,
Until I plug the numbers.
yeah. But by state's recommendation and by resolution, we are to keep 35%, and
State recommendation is 3 months.
3 months, okay.
Our policy is 35%
Right.
minimum.
I wish we knew where this is on that. I think it's probably around 40. Do you know? Since it's not that much of a difference, well, there's a little difference from. While he's looking that up, here's what complicates understanding this. If the budget gets bigger, the amount of money that you have left over actually looks like your percentage is lower. If you shrink the budget, as they've done, it inflates the percentage, the unassigned balance percentage. It looks like you have more because your budget is smaller. And that's one of the things we're dealing with in this.
I will say at with all of the proposed paving included, we have managed to achieve a 38%. So it would go up a little bit because we're decreasing the expenditure.
Yeah, so that's what I'm guessing. We've probably gone from 38, getting closer to 40. So we're where we're supposed to be by resolution, by our own policy. Other questions? So how can I phrase this as a motion that includes the amendment?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask Harry about, if we have that ability or not, even to move forward with that, given that it hadn't been presented to council. We have that budget drafted, but want to make sure where we stand on.
Yeah, I think Mr. Mayor, what you want to do is move to amend something that really hasn't been presented yet. I mean, I think that there needs to be a budget presented for people to look at, for the council to consider. And if you don't want to move to amend that budget, if you don't want to move to approve that budget, you could move to amend it. But I don't think that budget has been presented.
How about moving to instruct staff to prepare budget as proposed in the far right column?
I think that's appropriate.
Right, and we have also on our agenda tonight a continuation budget, because if we do that, unless we hold a special meeting, that pushes us into July, for sure. And that would also, I said earlier that if we don't do this as a first reading tonight, that means there won't be a public hearing next time, because the public hearing would not occur until the second reading, which is in July.
And just so that people know, that's because we have to be able to advertise in the newspaper for 10 days prior to the public hearing. And in order to do that advertisement, we have to have the numbers pretty well established. That, because that's part of the publication, is to give them some information on what the budget.
Yeah. So just to clarify, and not to push back against our esteemed attorney, because I suspect you're right and I'm wrong, but we have a first reading on our docket tonight, on our agenda. Just to be clear, we can't, if we amended that budget that is on there for first reading to reflect this, which could be done, it seems like with the right words, could we not still have a first reading tonight on the budget as amended? Because in almost all cases, you're amending it some way anyway, on from the first to the second.
Well, has the budget been published?
The proposed budget.
The proposed budget been?
It won't be published until after the first reading. Are you talking about the document that was requested to be on this agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
It has been disseminated to a certain extent, but not published as such.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's the point.
But
doesn't get
it wouldn't
published.
be published until after first reading.
Correct.
Well, then you can move to amend, I think you can move to amend, since we have a first reading scheduled and advertised. You can move to amend and then publish, if the amendment is approved, you can then publish the amended budget.
As what would need to be changed in this document is the increase in employee raises to 5%, from 2.5%. Elimination of the sanitation fee. And increase in the
Property tax to
We need to increase the paving.
The paving.
To the 268,439, additional 268,439 for the paving. And then change the property tax to the 1.905.
I thought that was 1.9004.
Yeah, 1.9004.
I'm sorry. Do you want to-
Boyd, do you agree that the estimation for next year based on this projection, as far as,
That's what we will, yes, that's what we'll need for the remainder of the haul goes away, and then the reduction in the SAFER grant, that will cover those. It will be left to us to try to make sure we cover any other increased costs or anything.
so your projection is not for a tax increase next year?
This would significantly minimize that prospect, and we will certainly make that our goal. The two things that we know that we have to deal with next year is addressed by this prospect.
So, can we put that together as a motion with the amendments to increase from 2.5% to 5% the employee raises as recommended in the proposed budget, to eliminate the sanitation fee, to increase paving, and this needs to be written as supplemental. And just one other point about this, one of the advantages in doing more paving is you get a better price on it. So we lose a little bit of that economy of scale, but we don't lose all of it. But I think another advantage is should something unforeseen happen, we don't have to do as much paving, which is exactly what we did before. I mean, you always have the option to work on that a little bit if you have to. It's one of the areas. Yeah. There's so many other things that can come into this conversation because you start talking about what's responsible and what's not responsible. What we're dealing with here is all the stuff that's inside the budget. And this is separate from capital projects, and this is separate from the Marion and Driver project. These are operating expenses that we're dealing with here, and so that's why I thought it was helpful to break it down to just that, so we can see also what money we're losing. The reason we're coming up short is because we're losing the hall and the SAFER grant, and the one thing I should have added there that I didn't is debt service. And we're adding debt service, we have it again. We have debt service that we've added in addition. So, did you get that? So, can you read it in a way that I could make a motion with it?
Motion to amend the budget. You're amending it to include a 5% COLA as requested in the proposed budget at $268,439 in supplemental paving, elimination of the sanitation fee, and amend the property tax rate to 1.9004.
Correct.
Did I get all that?
Yeah. I make that motion.
Second.
So we have a second.
You'll beat you.
Discussion. Anybody? Want to make sure if you want to say something, I do not want to stop you.
Well, I'm going to abstain. I'd like to hear what public, I mean, you have the votes to go ahead and pass it. I'd like to hear a public hearing before I agree to that. I still think to address what was said earlier, I think you have to look at all the divisions, and if we can't operate a division more efficiently, then we need to be looking at that division as far as somebody can provide it better and cheaper. And so I'm just going to abstain from this vote.
What division?
Like I said, I'm just going to abstain from this vote. From the water, I'm talking about the water department.
Okay, but that's not in this budget. That doesn't
No,
affect
it's
this. Okay. Any other discussion? Let's read it one more time so we can be clear.
Amend the budget to include a 5% COLA as recommended in the proposed budget.
Hey, Carol, is your mic on? Can we make sure that, okay, so for people that are listening. Sorry.
Amend the budget to include 5% COLA as recommended in the proposed budget at $268,439 in additional paving, eliminate the sanitation fee, and amend the property tax rate to 1.9004.
So all those in favor of this on first reading, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
You're opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, carries 3-0. I still think, as we move down, that was the first ordinance. We kind of carried both of those. But we still need to vote on the continuation budget.
I don't think there's anything,
Then we have conflicting budgets.
not until they're passed on second reading.
Because if we get to the next meeting, which will now be a public hearing at the next council meeting, and this is untenable for some reason, because, somebody could change their vote, we would need to be in place so that we moved into July.
Just handle it next time.
What do you think?
Just, you can handle that next meeting if necessary.
Well, it takes 2 readings for a continuation budget also. And we're supposed to have our budget.
Well, then there isn't any, there's no reason not to go ahead and do it on first reading tonight.
Yeah.
It doesn't conflict with what you've just passed on first reading, and will then give you the opportunity to pass it on second reading next time if necessary.
Let me find that, so I'll read it. Is it? Here it is. This is an ordinance to temporarily continue the fiscal year 2018-2019 annual operating budget on the town of Signal Mountain for fiscal year 2019-2020. So just to recap, the reason is if something happens and we don't pass the budget before we get into the new year, we have to have a continuation budget, and it takes 2 readings, and it needs to be done before July 1st. So I move to accept the continuation budget.
Second.
Second, Bob seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries 4-0. It's 8:30. So we move on to other business. Yeah, tentative agenda, and anybody else have anything that you want to toss in and kind of cue it up? I also want to mention that a couple of things I learned. I'm about to say this, and you're going to think I'm saying it in a negative way, Boyd, but we're not going to have a gazebo for Centennial. It's just not, Centennial, it's not going to be done. So we'll still have all the things that we were going to have, but we had hoped to have a grandstand built, but that's just not in the cards for multiple reasons. So that, and I've mentioned, and I just want to continue to mention it, that I'm pushing and to have us be very consistent and predictable about committee reports at our council meetings. And so we tested this time by writing all the committees that have met and get draft minutes, and we've gotten approval from our attorney that we can talk about draft minutes. I'm not going to do that tonight, but in July, we want to be into that by then. So the general idea, again, is to take the function of that off of staff's back so that they aren't chasing down minutes, because the committees exist for council's advice, and we seat the committees. And so we're all going to have to do a little bit more work as council members to get the committees that we're the liaisons for to have the minutes in by the next meeting, so that we can, and then, I'm proposing this, I guess, I can't dictate this, that at council meetings, we come prepared to present a summary. We don't have to read those minutes, but those minutes will, because we can't make them all as well, will give us a chance to present a summary of the minutes from the meeting so that we're on the same page. Like there's, what folks don't know is there's, like with the tree board, I just saw Ann Haygood sitting there, there's great things happening with the tree board. If you're seeing those ribbons around town, they're going around and dating the trees, and it gives us a chance to kind of keep up with things like that are happening. There's stuff in Rec League and just all the committees, so I'm not going to let that one go. I think we'll do a better job, and people will be more likely to get involved in our committees if they hear the good stuff that's happening and we can get them
So
involved.
the heads of the committees are presenting that, or are we presenting it?
It'll still be us.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll still be the liaisons, but we are going to need to ride herd on getting those draft minutes in. Because what happens sometimes is the committee might not meet for a couple of months, and if you wait until they approve their minutes, the thing that they needed to get community support and community involvement in is already passed. So that's why the draft minutes are important. We need to cycle those through quickly, and so we'll have to ride herd on that. And tentative agenda. We'll obviously have a second reading.
Right now, we're pretty light on resolutions and everything being closed of the year, so we're,
Then we have
Pretty
that, what's the one I showed you just before the meeting? The,
debt policy review.
yeah, so put that on there, the debt policy review.
You know, the one I gave you, and then you reminded me, and then,
Yep, like that exact one.
they can be listed under discussion.
Okay. Anybody else have any other business?
For Bo, we had talked about flying the Tree City USA flag at Lena Gibbons Park.
Okay.
Has there been any movement
No,
since that discussion?
we did look at that for placement, but I haven't heard back, so let me double check on that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, we're on a tentative agenda now, or other business.
I was doing agenda and other business, yeah.
Okay. If we could, I'd like Sam to show council and those here. We've been working on for quite some time for a marker for Coolidge Park. Most people, when you come up the mountain and you pass Shoal Creek coming up, don't realize that you're adjacent to our Coolidge Park, which is named for a Medal of Honor winner. There's a small plaque there on a stone, and just really feel that it's less than fitting. So we've been working with a military group to create a marker. We're going to get a larger rock wall associated with that. We've gotten the use permit from TDOT because it's in their right of way, so all the pieces are coming together. And Sam had a meeting today, and they brought the
With all our interactive words in my office, I'll be happy to grab it to show you.
Would you
You want me to grab it then?
go ahead, and we'll finish up from there. So that's something we've talked about for the last at least a year. It's taken a lot of time because of the state right-of-way and all of that, but
Is there any
everything's kind of fallen.
signage? Is there,
Pardon?
is there any signage there at that?
Well, this sign plaque will be similar to what's down at Signal Point, but you'll see it in a minute. But it kind of sits at an angle, so it's not like a billboard, so people can walk up to that. And we're also going to look at a state historical marker that everybody knows what those look like. When you see it, you notice that there's something of interest. So that would get people to pull off. It's a wide section of shoulder, so it works well that when people are driving by, they see that marker and pull up. Then right adjacent to that will be this other monument, and when you walk up to that, you're actually looking off into Coolidge Park. So it's going to be a pretty cool setup. So you just got this today, so we wanted to share that.
This is the proof for the sign that will be at Coolidge Park.
That same size?
It would be, well, roughly an inch smaller on either side, but basically the same size.
Can you come up here and turn around, yeah, and show everybody? That's cool.
And so this, like.
So it's going to be, it'll be in color like that?
It'll be in color like this.
Okay.
Encased in, I can't remember exactly how he described it. It was basically a resin material that would seal this. It would be able to be cleaned. He said it's simple as wiping it with Windex. So it's something I don't think we would have any issues with maintenance or upkeep. As Bo was talking about the rock wall that we plan to build, we have an initial design. We've talked to one contractor, maybe getting another quote on that as far as building of that rock wall. And I believe we would be able to do the installation of the sign itself. It's just basically 2 posts that would need to be buried in concrete. Just a little bit about who we've been working with. They're a part of the National Medal of Honor Heritage Center, which is getting its new facility downtown near the aquarium, moving from Northgate Mall. But it's also a few of their members who have a group called Signal Mountain Veterans, and they are the ones donating this, with the town doing the rest of the work.
That's very attractive.
Yeah.
I believe so too. And
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Does it meet our sign ordinance?
Believe so, yes. I talked to, did we talk about the sign, the size of this sign for that? Or I thought I did with
That's-
somebody. It does. So.
We want to be sure.
We're good.
Yes.
We're good.
So, and Mr. Coolidge is one of only 3 living Medal of Honor recipients from World War II. And so he was celebrating his 98th birthday in August. So we're hopeful that we can get this done ahead of or around that time to allow for a dedication ceremony that he'll be able to attend. No, and they've been working, that group has been working closely with his family. They have approved this, as well as they're fully in support of the rest of the project, so.
And, we're really hoping, we've gotten one quote and we'll get a couple others on the wall. It would be nice if there's anyone out there that would like to put their mark on this project and donate some rock work. If I was inclined or talented enough to do that kind of work, I would love to do it just for the sake of being able to say I was the one that did it. So if that piques anyone's interest, let me know. But I think it's going to be a really great addition to, and certainly well deserved.
Oh, absolutely.
We also plan, it's going to take a little bit more time, but we plan to pursue a Tennessee historical marker. I know sometimes you pass these historical markers on the roadway. It's hard to describe offhand, but you'll know it when you see it. That's something that may not come to fruition for another year, but we plan to start that process in the next couple. I've started the process, I just have not turned in the application. So the next meeting of the Tennessee Historical Committees in October, we're hoping that we'll have it to them in the proper amount of time for them to see it during that meeting. And then we'll pursue that down the road.
All right, thank you. Any other business? Anything I've missed, Carol? All right, thanks everybody for coming tonight. Nobody wants their taxes raised. These are stressful times, but one step at a time. We are adjourned.
Somebody give me the right number. Taxes. Okay, originally it was supposed to be 22%, right?
It was approximately that.
Okay.
Well, no, it depends on what you say, what you mean by originally.
The first time I heard
The budget is originally proposed, and let me just give you the numbers, okay? As originally proposed, the increase would be, the tax rate would go up to, nope. As originally proposed, the tax rate would go up to 1.8091. Okay, and then I'm not the one that came up with the percentage, so I'm not going to speak to that. So then,
Okay, what would that mean to a $250,000 house?
a $250,000 house. How about that? That would. Thanks. A $250,000 home. One, two, three. Would be $151.63.
Or if you would like to make a request for this document, I can give you that. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, let me give you my card if you wouldn't mind. You can send me an email tomorrow. And I'll get you a copy. I'm sorry. Oh, that's fine too. But I will be going out of town tomorrow. So please, I'll be in the morning.
we could have just